Okay, so now I want to show you how to cook the pork belly on the rotisserie bar in the Engel Fire. So if you have a look at the video on how to brine and prepare the pork belly, they'll show you how to get us to this stage here. So first things first is heat your fire up. So I've got a good base fire going in there. I'm just using tea tree in there. So I've just got an initial fire going, and then I've just added a bit more wood to it. And I'm going to bring the temperature of this fireplace up to 150 degrees. Perfect temperature for rotisserie. So just let that burn away while we get our rotisserie bar going. So here you've got a nice pork belly. This is not massive. This is going to cook pretty quickly. This will probably cook in about 40 minutes max. So you can see you've got your bar spikes. These can be pulled apart if you want to. And because this is so small, I'm not going to spike into the pork. I'm actually going to put the bars or the spikes on the outside of the pork, and that will hold it all together. So first things first, put that through. Try and keep it as kind of even through that pork as you can. Bring that to the end spike, and then grab another guy. Pop that onto there. Bring that onto there, and then just tighten it up. So don't squeeze the giblies out of it. All you want to do is try and keep that as even in thickness as possible. And this is where the beauty about these spikes come in. Because that's going to turn out, it's probably going to hold it, but as it starts to cook, it might start to slip. So what you do is just take these spikes and just push them down into the meat. Push them down into the meat. This is a really small pork roast, but that is just enough to secure the belly and stop it from rolling around as it's cooking. So that's it there. Super thin. It's got all the sage inside there. It's all ready to go. So the final thing really is just to put a little bit of oil on the outside. I'm just using sunflower oil. It doesn't really matter too much, but what you don't want to do is you don't want to waste your extra virgin olive oil on there. Give that a rub, and then I'm going to put a smidgen of flaky salt on the outside. You can kind of get that down in amongst those knife marks that we've got in there. Pop that on. Right, so that's all done, ready to go. You can put a little bit of house rub on the outside of that if you want, but for me, all the flavour for this pork is on the inside, and the outside is going to get all its flavour from the Engel Fire. So once you reach 150 or thereabouts, the pork is ready to go on. So see, this fire is slowly coming up to 150. If I want this to come up faster, you could feed it a bit more fuel, as in wood. You could open the flue up a little bit more, get a little bit more air circulating over that fire. More air, more fire, more flame, more heat. But you know, I'm pretty much bang on 150, or is there or thereabouts. It's going to come up to 150. So what you do to put the rotisserie on is take your fire, push your fire back, then simply grab your rotisserie, the spike goes up. You've got two bars on this fire, so I'm just using the lower bar. So you've got the upper bar and the lower bar. I'm just using the lower, and then take your rack there, pop that onto the bottom. That rack just keeps everything nice and clean. It stops all the fat of this dripping down onto those bricks. And then just turn it on. And that is that. So that's going quite nicely now. And you can see I've got a little bit of chicken up the top. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to move that over, because you can see that's directly on my flame. So I just take that chicken and I just move that over so that it's away from that flame. Still sitting inside that hot box, still cooking with the amazing smoke and the flavour coming from that fire, but it's not getting beaten by all those flames coming up. And that's it. Shut it down. You can put some potatoes on there, you can put some kuma onto that tray, you could have some pineapple. We might even, after we pull off the pork, we might char some pineapple on the open embers. Shut that down. And once we get to 150, you know that the fire is stabilised. Walk away. Easy peasy. Deliciousness. I'm just going to check the pork. So I've just opened the door, so that's going to come back up to 150. But I just want to do a temperature check on the pork. So easy, just open up your door, turn the motor off, stop it spinning, and then you're probing it in the thickest part. This is all pretty even if you look at that. So I'm going to go for the thickest part in there. And what I'm looking for the pork is a higher temperature than the chicken. I want to take this pork to between 78 and 81 degrees. That's my perfect temp for a pork belly. Any higher than 81, 82, you start to overcook it and it all dries out. Anything less than 75, it's too chewy. Plus you want to get to that 75 safety threshold, 75 degrees. That's on 54. It's got a bit more time to go. No problems. You can shut it back down. And you can see there, you're starting to get a little bit of color on there, but not a lot. So as I get closer to my 75 to 82 degree temperature, what I can do is I can take the rack away, pull the basket forward so that the heat's directly underneath that pork. And that high heat will allow you to get a little bit of crispiness. Okay, so I'm going to do a final temperature check, but I think we're looking pretty good. So what I'm looking for is I'm looking for 80 to 82. Oh yeah, sweet as, look at that, 86. And just check it in the, in the largest part of it as well. 85, 89.2, 82 degrees, perfect. So that is now cooked to perfection because this guy is telling us that. So I'm just going to do one final thing before we take it out to rest it, is I'll take this rack off now. I'll just pop that to the side. And then while the fire has still got a little bit of heat in it, what I'll do is I'll pull that forward directly underneath my pork, and then I'm going to close it again, turn that on, close it, and then give that outside skin some real intense heat. And what I'm wanting is for that outside skin just to colour up really nicely and potentially get a little bit of crackling. So just leave that for another 4 or 5 minutes. You can see there the intense heat already starting to colour it up. So yeah, a couple of minutes like that, and then she's good to come off and rest. Okay, so you can see there, just by pulling that fire forward and just allowing the pork to sit directly under that, that's intensely hot. See, you've created a nice amount of colour on the outside, a little bit of caramelisation there. Delicious. Almost not quite going to crackling, but boy, it looks tasty. So we pull that off now at this stage because that's well and truly done, and I'm happy with that. Pull that guy off, and then with your resting rack, just pop it back onto the rack, and we need to rest this now. So resting of this cut of meat is super important, and the way that we rest that is simply put it somewhere where it's kind of out of a breeze. Just loosely cover it, don't wrap it up tightly, otherwise the temperature might continue to go up. Just loosely cover it, leave it on the rack. That keeps it nice and separated, and any drips that come out are going to be captured by your rack. And I'm going to leave that for about 20 minutes. It's only a tiny little piece of pork. Leave that for 20 minutes, let that rest. And hey, if you leave it for longer, the longer you can leave it, the better. You can leave that for an hour, you can leave that for 2 hours. Yes, it's going to cool down in temperature. And so what you do is you just turn on your oven inside or crank up your Engel Fire, and just before you go to serve it, just give it a quick flash over some intense heat before you slice and serve. So the resting part is super important. Just allow those protein cells that have been destroyed by the cooking process to take the juice back in, because as it's cooking, it's pushing the juices to the center of that cut of meat. And so now what's going to happen is those outside cooked protein cells are going to take that juice back in, and so when you go to slice it, you're keeping the moisture inside it all the way through that piece of pork.